Okay, everyone, I'd like to welcome you to the regular open meeting of the New Westminster Board of Education for Tuesday, May 27th. Just a moment, sorry. Okay, well, I need my speaker. The New Westminster School District recognizes and acknowledges the Kakite First Nation as well as all Coast Salish peoples on whose traditional and unceded territories we live, we learn, we play, and we do our work. Tonight, we want to acknowledge another really sad loss in the New Westminster community, passing of Dave Seaweed, and Trustee Slynn has offered to make a few remarks about that. Over to you, Trustee Slynn.
Thank you, Chair. Is that working? Okay. Yeah, just wanted to say a few things about Dave Seaweed. So I wrote it. So I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the life and passing of Dave Seaweed. I had the pleasure of working with Dave for several years at Douglas College, where he served as the Indigenous coordinator and as a board member. Dave was a gentle giant with a quick smile and a long-standing figure in the New Westminster community. But more than anything, he was a champion for people, especially youth. In the wake of his passing, many former students have shared heartwarming memories on social media. And that's who Dave was, a man whose heart was on fire for students and everyone who walked through his door. He went out of his way to say hello, to offer words of encouragement, and to create safe spaces where people could simply be. I remember times sitting in my office and always knew when Dave was coming down the hall, his keys jingling, whistling a tune. He had these lovable idiosyncrasies that just made Dave Dave. Every Christmas, he organized a dinner for Indigenous families and community members, gatherings always filled with laughter and the joy of sharing a meal, children unwrapping gifts, elders telling stories, and those evenings embodied the spirit he carried. Dave was always willing and ready to help. His passion for seeing students succeed was unmatched and deeply felt. The relationships he nurtured with graduates and colleagues over the years are a testament to that legacy. Though he wasn't an employee of SD40, Dave was an integral part of our community. In his advocacy for Indigenous youth, meeting with ministers and premiers, he was a compassionate voice for reconciliation and a welcoming face in spaces that needed his presence. He was a man of generosity and joy. He once said, "I love teaching folks," and a teacher he was. Dave will be deeply missed, but not forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Slynn. Okay, the first item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda, and the recommendation here is to adopt the agenda for the regular school board meeting tonight as circulated. Were there any amendments or additions to the agenda as circulated? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, motion is carried. We have approval of the minutes and the minutes of the open meetings held on April 29th. So the recommendation is to approve the minutes as distributed for the April 29th, 2025 regular school board meeting. Can I get a motion to that effect? It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Next recommendation is to approve the minutes as distributed for the May 5th, 2025 special open board meeting. Can I get a motion to approve as circulated? So moved. Thank you. Seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And third set of minutes to approve the minutes as distributed for the May 13th committee of the whole meeting. Can I get a motion? That motion, please. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. I don't see any business arising from those minutes, which takes us to presentations. So our first presentation tonight is regarding K-12 literacy supports and the initiative from the Ministry of Education and Childcare. So welcome, Sandra Singh and Geraldine Lawlor. And over to you. And I'll just remind you if you can just use the microphone and introduce yourselves. Thank you. Okay, thank you. This one now. Turn it off. Took a little while. Today's presentation focuses on a fundamental cornerstone of education, literacy. More than just reading and writing, literacy shapes critical thinking, communication, and a student's ability to interpret and engage with the world in a meaningful way. It's the foundation upon which lifelong learning, academic success, employability, and active participation in society is built. Recognizing this, the Ministry of Education and Childcare has dedicated significant resources through the Provincial Literacy Grant to enhance literacy outcomes for students across British Columbia. This initiative is not only an educational priority, it's an investment in student success, personal growth, and the overall well-being of communities, and it aligns with BC's mandate to equip students with the tools that they need to be successful. Today, we will hear from Director Sandy Singh, Director of Instruction, Learning and Innovation. I have the privilege of working alongside Sandy in the development of this initiative to ensure literacy remains a priority for students, educators, and families alike. With that, I'm pleased to turn it over now to Sandra to begin today's presentation.
Thank you, and good evening. Next slide, please. This slide actually captures what Associate Superintendent Geraldine Lawler was highlighting in terms of why does literacy matter in our schools? Certainly what it is. Again, it's more than just reading and writing. It includes the components of critical thinking, communication, the ability to interpret and create meaning through various formats. The importance of literacy cannot be understated. In fact, it is essential to provide a foundation for lifelong learning and success. It's essential for academic achievement, employability, and active participation in society. And it certainly builds confidence and fosters personal growth in all students. And again, when we think about literacy, how does it impact our communities throughout our province and our nation and globally? Improved literacy skills they contribute to a healthier and more informed and economically stable community. Next slide. In November 9th, 2012, the Supreme Court of Canada released a unanimous decision recognizing that learning to read is not a privilege, but it is a basic and essential right. And I think this is where we have noticed the focus currently of our province to really ensure that educators are being supported with literacy instruction. And before I get into some of the details of that initiative, I just wanted to highlight again, next slide, please. When we look at the mandate for BC Public Schools, it really does highlight key learning outcomes and key goals that are essential to all students in our province. Next goal. Next slide, please. And those three goals are intellectual development, human and social development, and career development. And certainly when we're speaking about the literacy initiatives that are now a focus in our province, we are looking at outcome number one, where students will meet or exceed literacy expectations for each grade. Next slide. Thank you. So over the past 50 years or so, there has been a vast amount of research regarding reading development, which draws on the insights of neuroscientists, psychologists, linguists, speech pathologists, educators, and other experts. And Dr. Reid Lyon, who is a neuroscientist and educational researcher, what he's done is he's tried to, in his own approach, summarize these key statements of research into 10 maxims. And I'd like to share just a few that are relevant to tonight's presentation. And the first one is that literacy actually begins at birth. It's rooted in those social interactions and experiences. And if you've had the opportunity of holding a baby and the interactions of the exchange of oral language, that is so key and critical to a child's early development, because strong roots tend to produce strong readers. And so that richness of oral language that we are supporting our students with in our classrooms is so key to ensure that they are able then to be able to understand what they read. Next slide. And all good readers are good decoders, and decoding should be taught until children are able to accurately and independently read new words. So when I think of decoding, I think of this notion of children being able to lift the words off the page very easily. They do it with such ease and fluency, and that's where we need to get our students. Next slide. And comprehension is the end goal of reading. And basically what that is comprehension. It's something that we know is critical for our older students as well, but it's built on a solid foundation of vocabulary and background knowledge. Again, those happen in the earliest years with teachers and teacher librarians focusing on read alouds, enjoying sounds of language, the meaning of language. So when we have students who are able to decode with ease and they understand the words that they're reading, they comprehend effectively the text that they're engaging in. And next slide. To become good readers and writers, this is a very complex process. Students need to integrate many skills that are built over time, that are supported with teachers in the classroom. And I really love this statement here. Reading and writing, you can't separate them. Reading is breathing out, and reading is breathing in, and writing is breathing out. They go hand in hand. They are not taught in isolation whatsoever. Next slide. So that takes us to the K-12 Literacy Support Initiative. This is an initiative from the Ministry of Education and Childcare. It is providing a total of $30 million to all 60 school districts, both public and independent schools, to support with literacy development for students K-12. Next slide. And so when we're thinking of those key components of where we need to focus, there are some key components within the grant that has been requested of all districts to really put some work and attention to. Certainly the first one is evidence-based early literacy screening for all students, kindergarten to grade 3, evidence-based interventions and instruction. Next slide. So when we're thinking about key literacy skills, what are those? And why are they important? Well, certainly you can see those building blocks, and it really does start back with, the understanding that with our earliest learners, we do need to focus on phonemic awareness. And that's the awareness of a student can hear a sound and they can associate it with a letter. And then we go up into phonics, which is more of an intentional focus on instruction. So then children are able to associate sound and letter, and then they're able to take those sounds and make words. And then we're also focusing on fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. So these are key important skills because they ensure that our students will be lifelong learners. They're those pillars, those key foundational pieces. And these elements need to be taught and assessed using an evidence-based approach. And there is not one of those building blocks that is given more time over another. We need to, in our classrooms, ensure that all of those components are addressed through explicit and systematic instruction. Next slide. Okay, so when we're thinking about the early literacy screening tools, I just wanted to give you a little bit more information about this. Screening tools identify students who are at risk for reading difficulties or they're not responding to evidence-based instruction as expected, which means that they're not gaining the required skills and knowledge. So early screening makes sure that students are identified and receive the programming that they need before they start to experience significant difficulties. So essentially, there's really no time to wait. A screener is intended to be quick, reliable, valid, and predictive. It quickly checks the key skills that students need in order to be proficient learners. And when you look at a screener, it's done very, very quickly, but it's a way to just check the engine. So if that engine light goes on, then it prompts teachers to think about, okay, let's be curious about this. What do we now need to do? Next slide. So we know that we have some provinces across Canada who have done some really great work, in particular the province of Ontario, where they have identified some key evidence-based screening tools, and those are DIBELS, the Cadence Reading K-6, and Ames Web Plus. And right now, currently, this is where our province is also considering essentially those three, yet we're just waiting to see which ones they'll recommend. And from those recommendations, then districts can make decisions as to which one that they will utilize for kindergarten students up to grade 3. Next slide. Okay, so if that engine light goes off, then we need to understand that screener is highlighting a concern. And what a diagnostic assessment does is it enables teachers and support staff to dig a little bit deeper, pinpointing a specific skill or area where students are struggling and clarifying those instructional needs. And diagnostics are like that panel in your car. So if you know the light goes off, then you dig deeper to see, well, where exactly is the need of intervention and increased time for instruction. And then lastly, it takes us to the next slide, which is progress monitoring. So the light goes off, teacher thoughtfully thinks of what interventions are required to support the student, and then they need to go back regularly just to see, is instruction working? And if it is, they continue with that, or they decide another intervention or another approach to instruction. Next slide. So that's just summarizing, putting it together. A screener identifies who's at risk. An assessment enables us to identify what skills need to be taught. And the progress monitoring is our instruction working? It answers that question. Next slide. So evidence-based instruction helps students develop the skills that they need to be proficient readers. And this is, when we hear that word instruction, evidence-based, what does that mean? It means that it is based on best reliable evidence. There's no personal judgment involved in it. It's not based on any social media trend or any other influences. It's really based on scientific research that supports effective reading instruction with students. Next slide. You can skip that slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. This is just the timeline. So one of the key things that we have been working with collectively in our district is bringing people together at the table. So we've had a presentation with the Indigenous Education Council a few weeks back. I was invited, and it was a pleasure to present at the DPAC meeting. And we also, with collaboration with the New West Teachers Union, we have established a K-12 initiative support working group. And we are, with engagement from these partner groups, getting input around the screening, the intervention, and the instruction. And that's just the timeline in terms of what are the deliverables from districts. Next slide. And we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So in closing, this is a critical time for all districts in the province to address student literacy needs. Together, we can ensure that all students have the opportunity to be literate citizens. And as we reflect on the work ahead in supporting literacy across British Columbia, I leave you with the words of Kofi Annan, who was the former Secretary General of the United Nations. These words remind us that our efforts are not just about reading. They are about unlocking futures, empowering communities, and building a more just and equitable society. Thank you. And if there are any questions, Geraldine Lawler and myself are happy to answer.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was very inspiring. I think I see a number of hands coming up, so I'll just hand it right over to Trustee Dollywall to start.
You for the presentation. I really appreciate getting these, especially the math one was so exciting. And I feel like this one next year will be exciting too, once it's been implemented. And I had a couple of questions in terms of the work that we're trying to accomplish. I think it's no small feat to try to implement this district-wide. So I guess I'm curious, will the approach be focused on, and I guess informed by some of our student data, to like pinpoint certain schools first, or do you imagine just doing it all at once? And then I guess this is just a question in terms of like where the data lives. Like, is this something we would picture our new, I'm forgetting the name, but that new platform? Okay, thank you. Yes, is that where it would essentially live?
With regard to the Ed Plan Insight, it would depend on which screener assessment we decide to go with. For example, some screeners like Acadians, that was one of the ones that mentioned, comes with its own warehouse. There's a paper form. If we decided to go with the paper form, then we would build it into Ed Plan. But in any case, there will be a place where it's housed and easily accessible by students, by classroom teachers and by principals and by us.
Yeah, and to answer your first question, regarding the data, are we being informed with the data? Certainly. So when we initially had our first meeting with our our initiative support group, we did look at the data, grade 4 data, grade 7 FSA literacy data, grade 10, grade 12. And this was an opportunity through the lens of curiosity just to see like what is the landscape like for our students here in New West Schools. And when we're thinking about the rollout of a K-3 screener, we definitely will be certainly mindful in terms of what will that look like. We are a relatively smaller district, but that being said, it's no small feat to ensure that we are providing that in service to teachers who will need that first. And in terms of what would that look like, I always go with this notion of in order to go fast, you have to go slow. However, that being said, we want to ensure that, teachers are feeling well supported and we're doing it in a timely manner and supporting them in a timely way. Yes.
Trustee Carlson.
Thank you for the presentation. I might have missed the amount that our district was given. You said something at the beginning and I missed that number.
Certainly. Each district was allocated a specific amount based on student population. The grant that we were rewarded was approximately $250,000.
Thank you. And my other question was, do we know, have you had a timeline of when the province will recommend one of the three tools? And if so, when they do that, does the funding that's been allocated to us, will it cover using those tools?
The intention of the grant is certainly to cover any cost associated with a screener, any of the in-service that needs to be provided for instruction and intervention. The grant money is intended to support that, yes. And then you had another question, which I forgot.
Whether you had a timeline for when the province would
Yeah,
recommend.
that's a great question. So currently at this time, we are anticipating that the ministry will release that information quite shortly.
Thank you.
Trustee Slin?
Yeah, it's not so much a question. It's just to commend you on the work and like getting this rolling. I think the ability to write and read are just, like you said, they're just so vital to people. Being able to express your feelings and share ideas and read other people's. Yeah, it's great. And so I'm glad that this is happening and being rolled out and I'm in your capable hands. And I just wanted to add one more quote for you.
Sure,
It said, there's one, I can't remember who said it, but it was, we live one life, but the reader lives 1,000. And I always thought that's always been a powerful one for me.
Trustee Slin? Sorry, Trustee Sluse.
I know. I actually don't have questions. They were already asked and answered, but I did just want to say thank you. And I have not really ever thought about literacy in the ways that you shared with us tonight. And so I appreciate that. And yeah, appreciate the opportunity to learn. Thanks.
Trustee Connolly?
I'm just curious how this ties in, or does it just build upon some of the work? I know we've had presentations in the past about literacy I'm assuming this wasn't maybe reinvent the wheel, but just building on some of those pieces already.
When you're speaking regarding building on pieces, I think from the lens of the Ministry of Education, I think this is a key component to enhance the literacy improvement rates and outcomes. So if we're able to identify students as early as possible and provide them with the intervention, I am sure that, we wish by the end of grade 3 that all of our students are proficient in reading. And if we can get to that place, it situates our students to really be successful as they engage in FSAs for grade 4, for grade 7, all of those assessments that are key measures at the provincial level. So starting early and getting to our students early, I think is key to it. So again, it's triangulating the data. This will enable us to look at the data. It provides more information. It informs educators, certainly to ensure that we've got our kids where they need to be. So they feel that joy of reading and that success of reading.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and it's great to see that the province has pushed this ahead and that the funding is there to support it, because I know there were initiatives that were being done in our district before, but they could only go so far, or in one school, or with little mini grants that we were able to hand out. So it's great to see that funding, and it's amazing hearing the work that's being done. So thank you.
I just have a question as well. I see, just first of all, just want to acknowledge the additional support from the province. I do think it's significant. I know it's not a huge amount, but it does, I think, acknowledge the significant gaps that we see here and support staff to do this important work. I would love to hear, we did make a budgetary investment around the Ed Plan dashboard tracking, and I would love to hear maybe if superintendent could comment on how that works in, and then just if plans are to be developed, are those submitted on behalf of the board, and would they be brought? Would we get a chance to see that before they're sent in July?
So the EdPlan platform will allow us to track data for individual learners, for cohorts across the system. It allows all of us to see relevant data. The critical piece about it is that it allows us to ask the "and now what" question. So if a school's data isn't where you would hope it would be, it allows us to have a conversation with key staff at the school to say, what do you need? What learning can we support you in? What resources do you need? How do we respond to what the data tells us? So having quality data that comes with a frequency that that allows you to change course, it is a response to intervention tool that can be really valuable. We tend to focus too much on lag indicators, the data that we get on those grade 4, 7, and 10 things. And what really matters are teachers' own assessments, and then triangulating their own assessments with their gut against the screen and asking themselves the question together, what story is told about this child's learning and how do we respond? Similarly, together, what story is being told about this school and how do we go and hear them and then support them in responding to their gut and to the data? It allows us to, depending on the screen, keep screening data there, teacher developed data. It allows us to download all the data that would create the form of our vessel. I believe it also helps us produce those reports by graphing the data for us and supports us in analyzing the data. So it is a pretty critical tool, and certainly if properly implemented, you have to connect the tool to a shift in the way you use data and have conversations about it and collaborate around it. Otherwise, you're just sort of measuring something repeatedly. And I think the processes that that are being put in place are really, I think, an effective way to use that data. Is the last part of your question? Sorry, Chairman.
I guess just plan being developed. Is it submitted on behalf of the board, and does it come back to the board?
Oh, I'm not sure about the process there.
The plan is submitted on behalf of the district and would be happy to share a copy of that plan with the board prior to submission.
Wonderful. Thank you. Did I miss any other speakers on this one from the board? Okay. Well, thank you so much. That was really, really lovely dive into literacy. Thank you very much, both of you. Next up is the Accessibility Committee report. And thanks to Trustee Connolly and Ken Headley for their work on this with the committee. And I think you're going to bring us a report and a recommendation.
Yeah, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Sorry, I was in a critical response.
Just a moment, Ken. Sorry, we just need to adjust our audio at this end.
No problem.
Faint.
Should I keep talking and then that'll help you guys see
Just
where
a
we're at?
moment, sorry. We need to increase our volume over here. I'll let you know when we've sorted that out. Okay, let's try that again.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you all doing today? Can everybody hear me?
Great. Thank you, Kenneth.
Yeah, so excited to be here to talk about the work of the Accessibility Committee. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I was at a critical response management conference or learning opportunity, professional development out in Maple Ridge. And by the time we were done, I wouldn't be able to fight traffic to get there in time. So it was just easier for me to present remotely. Really quickly, I do want to highlight the work that Sandy's doing. And I think when we talk about equity and inclusion and anti-racism and diversity and all the things that we are so passionate about as a board and as a district, when we talk about it from a learning perspective, literacy and numeracy are the center of that, as she mentioned earlier, and as Trustee Slynn kind of pointed to as well. When kids know how to read and write, we remove barriers and obstacles for them. So really excited about the initiative, and I know that they're basing that work in the equity work that we're so proud of here. And so those interventions, once students have those interventions and those strategies in their hand to be able to make change to their practice and teacher practice, it really does shift a system. So it'll be exciting to see what this looks like in the next couple of years. The Accessibility Committee is led by Rhonda Jones, who's currently not here, but I did share with Rhonda that I would step in to do part of this presentation with Trustee Connolly. And so accessibility at SD40, when we looked at the accessibility legislation that came through from the federal government and the provincial government back in 2023, we were like, what are some of the key things that we want to talk about? And so, we were committed to having accessible facilities and programs. We wanted to make sure that our students felt supported, our staff and families felt supported from an accessibility lens when they integrate or interacted with our schools. The BC Accessibilities Act guides barrier removal standards, and the advisory committee was created to, as a mandate, part of that act, to identify obstacles and implement best practice or help implement best practices and remove barriers. And so that accessibility plan that was created back in 2023 and kind of, I think it was a 3-year plan across the province that a lot of school districts started off with, wanted to make sure that students were coming to inclusive buildings and inclusive schools. Next slide, please. And so the committee team, or the committee members, as every other board committee, we have representation from across different community partner groups and partnerships in New West. And so Trustee Connolly is part of the team, Karen Bauer working with QP is part of the team, Kelly Shields with the NWTU, myself, Sylvie H, who works with the high school. We had a couple students who were from the high school, Kai and Abigail, and they really brought us some really good insights based on their experiences. Zara from Share, we have Anne Belanger, who was a parent, Connie Swan from the Indigenous Education Department, our district principal or district vice principal, Leah Barrett from QP, Leanne Tonolino from Kinsight, Carrie Andrews, who's the president of QP, and Rhonda Jones, who leads us as a co-chair for Director of Instruction of Inclusive Education. And so those are the committee members. We met 4 times over the last couple of years, 4 times a year to discuss about how we could make New West schools more inclusive. Next slide, please. And so the accessibility plan that was created in 2023, a blueprint for inclusive access at New Westminster Schools, there were 3 main focus areas that kind of came out. Back in 2018, the board made a motion to have Bruce Cunnings, who was the current director of inclusive ed, to create an inclusive ed plan. And so that plan was a 5-year plan that kind of finished around 2022 to 2023. And so we are reviewing that plan ongoing as a committee. Rhonda's doing a lot of work with our schools, looking at how we do school-based team, looking at how we bring access and opportunities for families and students to gain access to learning supports in our system, and trying to streamline that process so that schools, when families move from school to school, that process is streamlined but also predictable, and that everybody's not doing everything different. We know that each school has differences that will allow the community to respond differently, but in this case, we wanted to make sure that we had structures and systems in place that people could predict what they would expect when their child is going through our school system. The second area that we wanted to look at was physical accessibility, which is what we'll be talking about today. And the third area that we're going to be working on next year with Victoria Wolders, who's a ministry ministry advocate, is communication and accessibility, things like looking at websites and technology to help improve communicative accessibility for students and staff in our community. Next slide, please. Oh, we can go to the next slide. So we did focus on physical accessibility. And so what we really wanted to focus on this year was eliminating physical barriers that may hinder access to classrooms, restrooms, libraries, cafeterias, and recreational areas. We really wanted to do this through regular assessments of physical ability or accessibility of school buildings and address any issues promptly. As we all know, a lot of our schools in the US, I mean, I know we are getting newer schools, but many of our schools are over 30, 40, some of them 50 years old. And so when you're looking at some of these schools, even with the retrofits that happen from ministry funding for new classrooms and so forth, the internal structure, physical structures of the buildings were built so long ago that they don't necessarily meet standards. And so as a committee, when we walked around some of the schools that we went through this year, well, one of them in particular, Herbert Spencer, we could see that there were attempts, but they are not anywhere near standard, and it takes lots of money to make those big structural changes. And so our district facility team is working really hard to try to change and uplift the low, what we consider the lower hanging fruit, some of the things that we can deal with right away. But overall, there's not a lot of funding and opportunity for facilities to do the major work because there's just no money right now, and we'd have to apply for a lot of grants and things like that. And so we just really want to develop an awareness as well and understanding among all members of our school community about the importance of physical accessibility and inclusivity. Next slide, please. And so we talked about many tools that we could have used. We landed on a tool that was free. It came from the British Columbia Council of Administrators for Inclusive Ed Supports in Education, known as BC CASE. It was the accessibility assessment tool. This tool provided us the opportunity to have meaningful conversations and also rate the school based on numbers or scores on where we were at in the terms of accessibility. Next slide, please. And so the two schools we decided to go to this year, we wanted to start at an elementary school. Ecole Herbert Spencer was the choice that we did. I think at the time I was acting principal at the school, so it was easier for us to do it through a school that we already had a relationship with. And then also the high school was the other one, as it was the newest school built over the last couple of years. And so at Ecole Herbert Spencer, beautiful elementary school right there in Queen's Park. What we noticed as we walked around in the terms of inaccessibility for staff and students, it was really humbling. As a school-based administrator for many years, you think you know things. And when you walk through the process through the eyes of somebody who's living with an exceptionality different than yours, you start to realize that we have a lot of work to do. And so just things like the underground parking lot, it's a beautiful parking space for staff. But once they step out, if their feet are wet, if it's raining, if that area is wet, those surfaces were so slippery for anybody to be able to walk on, just minus anybody with a mobility exceptionality. It was very nervous or nerve-wracking for us as we looked around and we said, yeah, like it could be an ice rink down here. From there, coming from the parking lot into the school, inaccessible entries and routes for people that have mobility exceptionalities. We looked at things like distant drop-off areas where at the front of the school, families could drop kids off. But if your student, again, had a mobility exceptionality, it would take them a while to get from the sidewalk to the front of the school. And then they had to walk down. There is a ramp that they could walk down, but some of them would have to try to get down the stairs. The doors were heavy. Handles were in the wrong place. Just some of those little things that you don't think about because everybody else can do it. And so it was really, again, humbling for us to see those pieces. Inadequate signage, lack of braille for students that might have visual exceptionalities. We talked about inadequate door handles and openings. Maps around the school, nothing for people to see where they were at. I think we had one fire map that let us know where classrooms and things were at, but no maps around the schools. No, those are one of those things we can work on really quickly to fix. And no audio signage. So imagine for somebody who is visually impaired or has an exceptionality, if there's no braille, there's nothing for them to listen to be able to point them in the right direction of where they need to be. We looked at things like washrooms, and the washrooms in the school are actually, from the outside looking in, they look like they are a nice size. But the students, or the student that was part of our group, Kaya, she just pointed out as she walked through, how inaccessible the doors are. They swing inwards versus outwards. So if you're somebody in a wheelchair, how difficult that would be to do that. There are these big bins in there that take up space, and those bins are for garbage and recycling and so forth, but it narrows the space for people to be able to go in and out. The sink levels were a little bit too low for somebody, or sometimes too high or too low for people that might be in wheelchairs to be able to access water and those pieces. So really highlighting like, hey, we're trying our best, but there's a lot that we need to do. And some of these areas like washrooms are big money items that we'd have to invest in through our operational budget because there's no fund to be able to do that work right now. Classroom seating. Lots of classrooms were just kind of tables and desks that were too low. There were some classrooms that had some flexible seating, but for the most part, a lot of the seating wasn't accessible. And again, access to sinks in those classrooms would not be great for students with mobility exceptionalities. And so as we walk through that school and we thought about things like, there's no direct outlet for kids with mobility exceptionalities to go to the playground. They have to walk out on the street sidewalk to be able to get to the back playground. And just how, thinking about a kid in grade 3 or grade 4 or even younger, having to be let out off school property to go onto school property to play, again, humbling. Even our accessible playground that was built not too long ago wasn't that accessible for many people. And so, it just really highlighted for me as a school-based administrator that there's lots of work to do and that, sometimes we don't think about that kind of stuff when we do this work. The Spencer team was Kaya from the high school. She really highlighted a lot of her lived experience and really pointed out some of the things that she went through as a student at Spencer. Danielle Connolly was part of that team. Zars Lalani from Share and myself were the people that did the elementary school. We can go to the next slide, please. And so at the secondary school, in some aspects it was a little bit better because it was more recently built. But again, lack of maps and signage, and some of the signage was too shiny. It was lacking braille, and there was no audio or code or QR codes. If there were some, they were very minimal. Again, so people not having access to finding out where they are or where they could be going. Lack of vision and hearing supports throughout the school, inconsistent washroom signage and placement. And I know in the SOGI committee, we've been talking about signage as well and making that a little bit more inclusive. So I think the two committees need to engage with each other to figure out how we can do this in a more inclusive way for everybody. Small adjustable tables. This was actually really highlighted by Abigail and Kaya that trying to navigate those days and hang out with your friends and socialize are tough. Even at lunch, the space, even though it's a big space in the Grand Commons in the cafeteria, when all the tables are put down, there's not a lot of movement between each other, and that the tables and chairs are not accessible for people that might have mobility exceptionalities. And so there were no large accessible tables anywhere for them to hang out with their friends that they pointed out. I think, again, one of those big humbling pieces, and I was at the high school once when this happened, is that when the elevator goes down, if we don't have access to people fixing it right away, we have students not attending class on the second and third floor. And really having to sit out on their learning and their experience in schools because of that. And so just things to think about. Even at Spencer, when we talked about the elevator that apparently was built or was installed about 3 to 5 years ago, that elevator, you actually have to hold the button to move up and down, which would be hard for any student to do, far less for some of our staff to be able to do. The door sometimes swings open. It depends on how you turn the key sometimes, and it can swing too fast and impact people as well. So there's just a lot of things that for myself, I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't walked around with the team and with the school. And so can we go to the next slide? So our next steps, next slide, sorry. I want to give a shout out to both Abigail and Kaya for the work that they did. Their insights were invaluable in the conversations. Kaya, when she was with us, she really pointed out a lot of things that really made us have to sit back and go, okay, what are we doing here, and how can we make those changes quickly to make our buildings more accessible. Next year, we're supposed to focus on communication, but even though we might shift that focus a little bit, the goal is to do two schools a year to focus next year, especially on our middle school, or on a middle school and another elementary school. I know some of our middle schools are a little bit newer, so maybe it might show up a little bit differently, but really wanting to focus on what's happening there, because when these students leave elementary school and they go to middle school, are they facing the same thing, or are staff facing the same thing? I think it's important for school board or school-based admin to be a part of these assessments at all school sites, so it raises their awareness. I'm going to give you two examples really quickly. In my educational career, when I was in Maple Ridge as a VP, you do fire drills all the time. We had a student who had a mobility exceptionality. We never, when I first started, never talked about how we were going to get that student off the second floor if there was a fire. We had to train staff, specific staff, to be able to lift that student if elevators or ramps weren't working, to be able to move that student to the outside. That was humbling for me as an educator. And then a couple months ago, I went to a Safer Schools presentation where they were talking about a parent from Sandy Hook shooting back in 2012, talked about having in IEPs accessibility plans for crisis. What happens when we have students, when we have crisis? We're expecting EAs and the adults in the building to take care of kids, but they're dealing with their own issues and traumas and those experiences at the same time. And so those two experiences as a school-based admin, when you listen to that, you're like, okay, I need to focus a little bit more on how we can be more inclusive. And so I think for our school-based administrators, when the committee walks through and does these assessments, it would be really important for them to be there to hear some of these and see some of these different experiences that students are having. And I think district facilities are doing an amazing job to try to complete some of the things that they need to change, but this requires additional funding to make sites more accessible. I mean, we shared with our team what needed to be changed, and they ran over to Spencer and they made some meaningful change already. One of the big things was that there was a drain at the back of the school that dipped below the ground level and could lead to lots of students being injured, not just students who may have mobility exceptionalities. And so they filled that in right away. They were like, yeah, we can do that. There's certain things, door handles and things that they could apply for funding for and use grants for, but they're trying their best. But the big shifts that need to happen, there's not a lot of money for that, and it's hard to take it out of an operational budget that's already tight for everybody. And so I think that's where I'm going to pass it off to Danielle to talk about a motion or a recommendation and talk about those pieces.
Great, thanks, Ken. I just wanted to point out a couple of things, that the tool also included sensory and social emotional items like posters using visual and graphics, that represent the diverse school community, noise levels, lighting, those types of things. And I really want to thank Rhonda for doing the work and finding the assessment tool. I think it really allowed members of the committee to get out and do some hands-on work that's going to really contribute to the accessibility mandate. And it's already, as Ken was pointing out, resulted in some quick improvements. And there's also been some really interesting connections already. Kylie, who works with both the accessibility committee as well as the SOGI committee, made the connection that the SOGI committee is working on signage for some of the washrooms. How about we incorporate some of these accessibility pieces as well? So it's been really nice to see some of those connections being made. And I just, again, want to echo Ken and thank the students who were involved. At having their firsthand and lived experiences certainly helped put a lot of things into perspective for us. And also I'd like to thank Joseph Wong, the manager of facilities. He came and sat in on one of our accessibility committee meetings after we'd done the site assessments, and he just took the time to really listen and give us some context as well for work that's done, how work does get done, that type of thing, and went away, as Ken mentioned, sent an email back to us and said in a short time they were able to address several of the smaller items of concern, like the tripping hazard, putting yellow contrasting lines painted at exterior steps. A work order has been submitted to change the orientation of the girls' accessible stall. So those are, it's nice to see the work leading to some meaningful change. But as Ken did allude to, some of the really kind of more structural changes at some of our older schools kind of go above and beyond the funding that we're able to access, and to make some of these really important and transformative changes for people like Kaya, who when she talked about how it took most of her recess to get to the playground,
Yeah.
and then had to come, it's heartbreaking to hear that, and it's eye-opening. So those are the kinds of things that I think the work of the committee and the direction from the provincial government has really shed a light on, and shown us where we need to make some improvements, and that does lead to the motion. I don't think the backgrounder was included, but so I think if folks are looking for a little bit more of a background, I can certainly provide it, but it's basically in a sense pointing to, while some of the improvements of these schools are relatively easy or inexpensive, and aging infrastructure built in time when there are different requirements for accessibility, the improvements will be costly, including ramps to playgrounds on concrete stairs, door upgrades to meet current accessibility standards, ensuring bathrooms on all floors have accessibility options, and even library items like large print or braille and audiobooks. Districts can access funds through minor capital grants, annual facilities grants, but funding based on these applications is never guaranteed, and seldom are all requests granted. So that leads me to the recommendation. Do you want me to read it, or do you want to read it?
Go ahead.
Okay, so the recommendation being that the Board of Education of School District Number 40 write a letter to the Minister of Education and the Minister of Education, the Honorable Lisa Bair, and the Minister of Infrastructure, the Honorable Bowen Ma, asking for a commitment for dedicated and predictable funding and/or grants to be made available annually to school districts to complete accessibility upgrades at schools above and beyond the annual facilities grant and the minor capital plan grants. And I want to also point out this motion was drafted and shown to the committee, who all were in favor of bringing it forward as well. So.
Wonderful. Thank you very much to all of the committee members, and to Trustee Connolly and Kenneth and Rhonda for all of your leadership. The motion has been put before you. I think we can consider that moved and seconded. Any other discussion or questions on the presentation, I guess, or the motion? Go ahead, Trustee Sluice.
Want to thank the Accessibility Committee for undertaking this work, and to Trustee Connolly for championing the advocacy for funding accessibility improvements. There are 8 million Canadians, or 28% of the population, that have disabilities, and the rates of mental health-related disabilities has risen significantly in recent years. 72% of people report encountering some form of physical barrier, especially those navigating indoor and outdoor spaces around accessibility. These data underscore the importance of continued efforts to improve accessibility in our district. I think this is also a really good reminder for us about the importance of universal design. Retrofitting is extremely important, expensive, and we know we have new schools coming in the future. As the accessibility audit shows, even our newest schools need accessibility improvements. So let's just keep that in mind. I had a note here. I was curious about whether the committee has people with disabilities, as I know from my day job, the importance of nothing about us without us. We need to emphasize disabled leadership design with rather than for people. But through the presentation, I think I came to learn that some of the folks on that committee do have disabilities. So I think that's great.
Yeah, we have representation from the NWTU. There was a teacher with disability that's a part of the group, and a couple members from QP as well. And yeah, so we are very cognizant for us, not without us, right? And so
Okay.
yeah, we do have members that are a part of the community.
Lovely. Any other trustees? Trustee Slynn.
Yeah, it's not so much a question. It's just I wanted to comment on something that Ken said that I really appreciated, which was about, walking through the schools and looking with new eyes at things, and seeing it from a different perspective. And I think that that's a philosophy that, we can use in all of our committees that we sit on and the ways that we interact in our school district, if from the anti-racism committee. So, just seeing what other people's experience is like and moving a mile in their shoes and letting students and staff know that they're being seen and thought of, and their needs are being cared for and met, even if we can't take care of them all right now. But it's great to hear that, like you said, the low-hanging fruit or things that we could address right away were able to be addressed.
I had a question just around, I know there was talk of sort of how much funding was needed to address the gaps. And so I'm curious if there's a figure in particular per school, or if that's a work to come. And then if they're hearing the plan to get to other schools in future years, are there sort of across the board improvements that we could look at implementing, just so it doesn't too many years to get there, I guess.
Good, hon. What do you think?
Oh, if you can mute yourself, Zoom user, thank you. Maybe to, I don't know, Kenneth or Trustee Connolly, if you wanted to.
Yeah, and
Rush is not the best. Why? So yeah. Do you want some of my meat? I have lots. Huh? Mm-hmm. Oh, I have a lot of meat. Would you like some?
Zoom user, if there's an opportunity to mute your audio.
Do you have the admin? Who is the admin on here?
It's not me. No.
Hey, broccoli.
Not me.
Mm-hmm. It's okay, like you're not playing. You felt bad and molestation and stuff like that.
To answer the question, you know what? There wasn't a specific figure. That would be a conversation as we develop the relationship with Joe and the facilities team. They did provide like some basic numbers. For example, if they were going to put a ramp at a school for a portable, it's about $10,000 to make it accessible. Joe has really tried to lean on his team to learn the skills to be able to do and build some of those things so they can do it in-house at a cheaper price, and at a more speedier improvement rather than bringing groups in. And so I really do appreciate the work that Joe is doing. I think all we were planning on doing right now was just highlighting some of those pieces, trying to see what patterns are showing up at schools in the terms of issues towards inaccessibility, and sharing that with our staff and our team. And I think that the more and more we work closely with the facilities team, we'll start to realize what those numbers are and what we need to do as a district to provide the appropriate funding to deal with some of the things that we have to deal with pretty quickly. Hello? I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. Is it? Hello? 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 Did anybody hear my answer, or hello? No?
Hello? Hi.
Hi.
we can hear you.
Sorry, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good.
You can hear us
I
now?
appreciate that answer. That was great. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So we're just, I'm just asking the board now if we have any other questions or comments, or we'll go to a vote on the motion. Seeing none, then all those in favor of the recommendation. Thank you very much. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, great. And we will follow up on our letter writing there. Trustee Connolly, make sure we get that out.
Thank you.
Thank you again, both of you.
Thank you so much for having us.
That takes us to correspondence. Just included in your package for information is a response to a letter that we sent to Fraser Health regarding a reduction in the hours for nurse practitioner services at NWSS, and we've received a reply which does not yet increase those services, but we'll continue that advocacy. And now we're at number 5, reports from senior management. I'm going to start with, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, the letter was confusing to me. It led me kind of to believe that they were retaining, but is it just retaining the reduced? Is that what I'm to interpret out of it? Sorry.
It's funny you say that because I initially read it the same way, and then read it again and did not read it as favorably. So perhaps we'll follow up and clarify. Superintendent Davidson.
So we've been having ongoing meetings with staff about that, and the interpretation we get is that there remains a commitment to supporting New West Secondary Schools, but there's no commitment in terms of the amount of time. We do know that the person who has been supporting the school won't be, and we don't have any indication of who might be replacing them.
Okay, yeah, thanks for clarifying that. That's too bad, but we'll keep up that advocacy and thank you for the follow-up. Okay, so reports from senior management, starting with Superintendent Davidson for your update.
Okay, well, staffing has begun round 2 underway, heading into round 3 here next week. We're staffing an acting vice principal position for NWSS with the appointment of Miriam Schellenberg as district principal. Student services in order to support Rhonda. We've begun conversations around our operational plan, which is the plan that we will connect in administration to the strategic plan. So the goals of departments need to be in alignment with the strategic plan. We need to articulate what those goals are, how they'll be measured, when and how we'll get there. So that's a plan we're working on. We'll work on that into the fall. I attended a bunch of events, so I'll share those with you. We recently joined the Chamber of Commerce and have attended a chamber meeting. Trustee Connolly and Chair Russell were at that meeting. I spoke very briefly about the value of partnership, not just in terms of the benefits that can accrue to schools, but what schools can do to enhance the level of support to business community, and that was an interesting meeting. I enjoyed that. Attended the change of command for the Royal Westminster Regiment, the Westies, and promoted to commanding officer was Lieutenant Colonel Clint Utley, who is a member of staff at New West Secondary School, a teacher who works in our system, and that was really great to see. It was very cool. Attended the night of jazz. The theme was ducks. There were a lot of ducks. I threw 20 ducks trying to get it to land close to a lily pad, and they bounced too much. And I tried putting English on it, but the heads would make them bounce too far the other way. There was really no tactic that worked for me. It was very unfortunate, but an amazing evening of music, and so many of those students who are off to schools to study music, and it's just really the level of talent coupled with hard work is amazing. And the staff, all of the staff and families who were there, really made it a really special evening. And I know Holly and I really enjoyed it. It was really good. I think they even served duck. The servery served duck at the duck music night. There were some struggles getting music that was themed for ducks, so there was songs about chickens and stuff too, but it was actually pretty spectacular night. I attended the NWSS capstones, the graduation project capstones for 2 days. It was amazing the things that were interesting to students, and it would be, I don't know what the split would be, but there were a lot of people who put a ton of work into amazing capstones projects. about something they had no interest in studying in post-secondary, but it was just an important part of their life that they knew they wanted to carry with them. And that too was exciting. It was, I've downloaded, I don't know how many songs into my Spotify playlist from young folks who are recording and mixing, producing, doing all of that. And it's really, really cool stuff. Also attended the International Culture Fair. There were a fair number of folks who aren't international students, but who wanted to showcase their cultures as well. The food was amazing. The music was better. It was really quite cool. And then I also went to Ms. Knoller's class and participated in the superintendent's talk show and tell. And that was pretty cool. They had play-in music like on Jennifer Hudson's show. So I got to demonstrate my moves a little bit. And then we played Superintendent's Simon Says. And I don't mean to gloat, but I have to gloat that so far I'm the champion in terms of the guests and the show and tell, in terms of number of kids I could get out. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I'm mindful of the fact that most of what's presented by all of my friends and colleagues here is work that I support, but certainly work that they do. And I want to say here how much I appreciate them and all the work they are doing this year in preparation for next.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for the superintendent at this point? Okay. That takes us to next item, which is integrated child and youth mental health team funding application, which is a piece we've been discussing for a little while. I think we're eager to hear a bit of an update on that.
So we've been in conversations with people who currently have ICYs, integrated child and youth teams, in order to try and build a framework that would fit a district of our size, and in order to express what services and supports we think could be present within an ICY, taking into account current partnerships and relationships we already have with other agencies in our community, not-for-profit, and so on. We've had a number of conversations with folks from the ministry. They actually don't take applications. They reach out to you and let you know that you're going to receive one based on data that they track. I will say, though, that they have been inviting of every conversation, happy to review the documents that we're preparing, and certainly open to us communicating them why we believe that we have a need that is significant. I've shared in those conversations that we have neither an ICY or Foundry in our community, and that while we benefited from amazing support from neighboring communities and from ICY personnel from other systems, when we lost a staff member recently, the challenge is that we were already faced with significant challenges in supporting student and youth, child and youth mental health in our community, and that the gaps existed before and were simply made more prevalent and we think exacerbated over the longer haul by the experiences of young people and staff relative to that. And so where we are right now is within the next week or so, we'll submit to them, here's what our plan would be if we were able to make an application. This is what our application would look like. What are your thoughts on that structure? Essentially wanting to make sure they understand what it is we're after, and that we are mindful of what's possible and what's actually relevant within the framework, so that we're not asking for something that isn't within their mandate. We'll also be communicating on my side with senior staff within the ministry, deputy ministers, in order to share with them what it is we're advocating for on the administration side, so that they understand what it is we're chasing, so that when they make recommendations with respect to Treasury Board submissions and so on, that we're front of mind among the senior staff in government. Would also say that communication with government about the needs in our community, beyond our conversations at the administration level, are actually welcomed. And so we're members of the public or the board motivated to communicate. It's certainly something that that they are receptive to hearing.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments? Trustee Connolly.
I'm just curious, is there any way to access their data points, how they analyze? Is there transparency around how they make these decisions?
Yeah, I can ask about that. I'm sure they'd be willing. They've been so open in conversation. I'm sure they'd be willing to share how they come to the space they've come to.
And I'm curious, I know this is the first time we've initiated, because there's not an application process around the integrated child and youth teams, but how many times have we applied for Foundry? Do we know offhand?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I know at least.
I don't believe we have either applied for a Foundry because it's a nonprofit, and yeah, I believe there've been conversations with Fraser Health around locations, but yeah, Trustee.
We did apply,
Dudley.
sorry. Yeah, we did apply. I believe it was twice, and we were I don't want to say rejected. Well, we were rejected twice because other communities that had greater needs and more capacity were prioritized over us. And I think the latest reason was because Burnaby had one, I think.
Thank you for filling in that important information. Yeah, Superintendent Davidson.
One of the things that the staff that I've spoken to heard me speak to was the fact that the data that they use to sort of take the shape of a community moves really quickly. And given that we're the fastest growing community in our province, that data is shifting quicker, I think, than they understand. And so part of why we're having these conversations is so that they're aware of what we're seeing in real time, and that we're actually in a different place than what their data might tell them we are. But again, I actually need to get from them an deeper understanding of what precisely they look at.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for doing that work. I know it's something we've been asking about off and on for a little while. I think a number of trustees have brought it forward. I do believe we're underserved for child and youth mental health services, and this would be very, very helpful, and take a lot of pressure, hopefully, off classrooms. So we're all aligned on that. Okay, well then we are at 6A and a piece of business. And the proposed memorandum of understanding, or MOU, with New Westminster Police Department. Trustee Carlson has brought this forward. It's a topic we have talked about quite a bit over the years and addressed some gaps. So I want to thank her for bringing that forward. Yeah.
I don't know what it's a point of order or whatever, but I do believe our policy is if you're online that you have a name associated with your identification. I'm wondering if we could just ask folks who are joining us online to identify themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we could ask anybody who's joined us online, if you can go to the three dots at the top right where you are, and change your name so that it is your full name. We do require people to, if it's your intention to speak to the board, we do need a full name. And yeah, I think for now, though, we're looking for the text of the recommendation on screen.
Actually,
Okay, sorry. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay, we're looking at. Okay, yeah. So over to Trustee Carlson to introduce this motion.
thank you. I'd like to acknowledge this topic can be unsettling for some. And I'd like to clarify again that this motion is not about reinstating a past police liaison officer program. It's not about my personal preferences. It's about responding to real and repeated safety concerns I've heard from staff, students, and families. The motion asks the superintendent to form a new, clearly defined relationship with the New West Police Department through a signed memorandum of understanding. That MOU would reflect today's values, including inclusion, respect, integrity, transparency, and accountability. This is about doing things differently, not going back to how things were. It's about building something new and thoughtful in response to the unsafe incidents I've heard about that have occurred in our schools. As trustees, we don't manage operations, we set direction. This motion reflects our governance role, while trusting our superintendent to lead the operational work in a transparent and collaborative way. This includes listening to all voices, including those who are unsure, and bringing forward an agreement that serves all of our students and staff. I will acknowledge that I've had a number of conversations with my fellow trustees and believe a slight amendment to the motion may work with the whole team, and I'm happy for Bettina to be sharing it here on the screen with you now. There is one whereas that is not shown on the screen but did go out. The second whereas, I'm happy to change that to read, whereas recent incidents and community feedback highlight ongoing safety concerns on and around our school premises. The wording increase may be my perception, as I have personally heard more about safety concerns, but that does not prove that there have in fact been more incidents on school grounds. I may have just heard a lot more of them recently in discussions. I will now read the amended motion. Therefore, be it resolved that the New Westminster's Board of Education direct the superintendent to work with the New West Police Department and school administrators to enter into a memorandum of understanding that considers a comprehensive school safety partnership framework. Be it further resolved that the framework include a review and incorporation of all outstanding elements from the 2021 MOU directions and are grounded in the following values. 1, integrity in partnership. 2, relationship-centered approach. 3, inclusive and responsive and trauma-informed training. 4, effective and respectful communication. 5, community accountability and regular reporting processes to assess program effectiveness and identify areas for improvement. 6, spirit of inclusion and equity. And 7, transparency. Be it further resolved that the superintendent bring a public report for community feedback to the board with the final draft memorandum of agreement, including the school safety partnership framework, timeline for implementation, and a cycle of review and reporting regarding the effectiveness of this partnership. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, great. Well, we'll consider that moved as displayed on screen. And if we could get a seconder, thank you. And then we'll just go to discussion. But I saw a hand and then I wasn't sure. Trustee Slin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. First, I just want to commend Trustee Carlson on her work on doing this. I think that this is a topic that's been, circulating around the board for a long time. And I appreciate that we can all come together to bring our different views and ideas into the room, into the table, to be able to take the step forward in creating a relationship with the NWPD that looks different than before and suits the needs of the district, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Trustee Dallowell.
You were looking at the name tag, weren't you? I just wanted to thank Trustee Carlson for putting this forward. I think this is reflective of a number of conversations that we've had about the path forward, and I appreciate her bringing it in a public light so folks know some of the conversations that are happening not at the board table. And I also just appreciate I guess, the collaboration, and for Trustee Carlson for incorporating amendments that included the value statements. So thank you for that. And that was something that we worked on together. And I think this does reflect some of the work that we want to see. And more than anything, it just reflects starting a relationship and just getting at the table. And I think another piece that I think is different than how board normally operates, which is the piece about community feedback. And I think that that's a different and interesting way for us to be engaging in this work. And I think that that'll be valuable when we get there. So thank you to everyone. And yeah.
Trustee Sluice.
Yeah, thanks. We all understand that the relationship with NWPD is a slice of what we need to be working on related to student safety. We need this relationship with NWPD is important, and there is room for improvement. I'm really happy to see the values of equity and inclusion reflected in the motion as it exists now. I think that these need to really guide the decisions and the work that happens in development of the, are we calling it an MOU or an MOA? I see it in two, anyway, doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, equity and safety are not competing priorities. They are deeply entwined, and safety doesn't come at the expense of inclusion or equity. And so really, really happy to see those included. Thanks. I do have an additional motion, but we'll deal with this after, right? Yeah.
Thanks. I guess I'll just add as well then that I am happy with where we've landed here. I know there've been a number of conversations among us. I do think this addresses some clear gaps that we've identified that need our attention. It is one part, but an important part of our broader work on safe and secure and inclusive and welcoming schools. The heart of that safety work, I believe, is the work of educators in classrooms, and those must be supported in the work that is done there. But I'm hopeful that in this MOU conversation we can fill some gaps and lean on the police department for some collaboration that is valued. We know there's interest and support in the community for policing and for those relationships. We also know that in the community there are concerns, quite serious concerns from some community members, and I want to acknowledge that those are real. They are not imagined, theoretical, or ideological. They are researched and evidence-based, and we've seen some of those hazards and risks in our schools recently. When use of force happens in relation to vulnerable students. But I'm happy with where we've landed. I'm comfortable with the conversations we've had. I think we've had those discussions in good faith. And I look forward to seeing where we land. I think there is a piece that I'd like to see around the board continuing to connect to the work, and I just want to make sure that we continue to protect the ability of the public to see where we're going with this and comment before we get to a final. Thank you. So, Trustee Connolly.
I just want to I guess echo a lot of what's been said and kind of ruminate on where we've been and things that haven't sat well with me. And it's interesting. I know that the Vancouver School Board has gone through something similar, and I actually came across some words that really resonated with me in terms of going forward. It was Preeti Faradkot, and I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. She's a trustee there. And she stated that racism in the justice system cannot be defeated by ending police presence in schools. Institutions will continue to exist. Instead of creating separation and instead of dividing our communities, let's try to build bridges and understanding to foster positive relationships between communities and other institutions. I think that really resonates to me, especially as a community of educators. I think that there's a role that we all have to play here, and I appreciate the willingness to move forward and move in that direction to build bridges and to educate ourselves and other members and partners in our community. So thanks.
Okay. Any other comments? Concluding statement, Trustee Carlson?
I'll just say that you were correct. It is memorandum of understanding. So we'll change that in the last paragraph. Thanks.
Okay, great. So that motion then is before you. I think we're ready to go to a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And then was there any further discussion or motions on this one? Trustee Sluice.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to bring forward a motion. Should I read it? It's around setting up a subcommittee so that there is an opportunity for regular updates and opportunities for feedback with a select group from the board.
Yeah, if you could read the wording of the
Sure,
motion, that would be
I will.
great. Thank you.
Slowly,
And then you can,
I could do
you
that.
can read it
I
out
will
and then
read it.
send it over. Yeah.
That the new Westminster Board of Education number 40 direct the superintendent to form a subcommittee that includes 2 trustees selected by the Board of Education that will serve to provide feedback and receive updates on ongoing work towards a memorandum of understanding with the NWPD. Yes, that the new Westminster Board of Education direct the superintendent to form a subcommittee that includes 2 trustees selected by the Board of Education that will serve to provide feedback and receive updates on ongoing work towards a memorandum of understanding with the NWPD.
Okay, that has been moved. Do we have a seconder? Seconded? And any other discussion? Did you want to speak to it first, Trustee Sluice?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Thanks.
Okay. Trustee Connolly?
Yeah, this really confuses me. This seems like micromanaging somebody that we as a board have put in a position to run our entire school district. We've already asked for it to come back at the end for review. I think we are giving really good guidance about what we're asking for. I just don't know when. I think this is a really slippery slope if we're starting to want to micromanage the CEO who we hire, we entrust with, running our district, the safety, the security of our students, of our staff, of our families within the building. I don't quite. I can't wrap my head around the necessity of this. Yeah.
Okay. Trustee Carlson.
I have, I guess, some of the same concerns or thoughts because I look at our role as governance. We listen, we set direction, we allocate resources, and we trust our senior staff to carry out their operational work, including engaging with our partners. And then we hold them accountable to do so with care, with transparency. And we've given a clear set of directions. I'm not sure I'm in favor of this motion.
Okay, we did talk about this. I believe there was support. Yeah, I'm surprised that we're no longer in agreement. I'll say I support the motion for the reason that the board hasn't given explicit direction. This would provide a sounding board to continue to make sure that that as new information comes to light in the discussions, there's a reference group to ensure that that's in keeping with the wishes of the board. I think that's very straightforward. Trustee Slynn?
Yeah, so I believe I'm in favor of the motion that Trustee Sluice is putting forward, and for this reason, it's not for a lack of trust in the superintendent or their discernment in the values of the board and the values of the community. Because regardless, when we get to the final draft, it's going to come to the board and we're going to decide if we accept it or not. But I see it as a chance of, again, more relationship building, hearing not so much to railroad a decision or the conversations the superintendent is having, but more so as collective care, with the superintendent, the board, as we enter into a relationship, with this partner group and work towards that. So for that reason, I would be in favor of Trustee Sluice's motion, but I want to be very clear that it's not my desire to have the superintendent feel that they don't have the authority to engage in these conversations. But I would also love to hear about it as the process or the relationship is developed and grown. That just feels good to me. So that's where I stand on it.
Superintendent Davidson?
Just I want to make sure that we know that we're having this conversation that connects directly to the motion that you just passed. So the motion that was passed, I think, says that I share a final draft with you. That would be shared for feedback. I would still be doing the work of signing that, but it's shared for feedback. I think that's important to understand. I would have built into a process anyway. Here's where we are. Bring a report back. Here's the kind of conversations that are happening, and then go back and do that work. That's something that I already do. Right? Tell you what I'm up to along the way. And so I'm not offended by the desire to hear what I'm doing along the way. Whether or not this is the mechanism, I leave that to the board. But it is important for me to say that would have always been part of my thinking, particularly given the history of this issue in community and how hard it's been for folks. And so I don't know if that was support or not, but I get what you're saying. I'm not offended by it. I'm saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I totally appreciate that, Superintendent Davidson, and yeah, I just wanted to be very clear that it was not out of any sort of.
Yeah.
It's just I think I'm just going to speak for myself and but like I really care about this. Like I really care about how this relationship proceeds and what we can build to as a slice of the pie for safe schools and having the community at large, the students, everybody feeling safer or that slice of it. So yeah, it's just out of a lack of or a place of desire to want to have a hand or be a part of this relationship building. So that's it.
Trustee Connolly.
Well, I have an amendment to the motion. So do we have it up in writing somewhere yet?
No, I could send it.
But is this it?
It will just need a minute to get that on screen.
Sorry, I think we can figure out where it would fit in, that the amendment would be that that staff provides updates to the committee of the whole on progress and development of the new memorandum of understanding with the new SPD, and updates on how this program will work collaboratively with our Safe and Caring Schools team. I don't, can I speak to the amendment now?
Yeah, of course.
Or no, we have to move it and second it.
So you know, actually, yeah, you're right. We should move
Is
it.
this amendment to that motion?
Yes.
Yep, it's an amendment to the motion. Yeah. So maybe we could
I'll
just get the
second it
motion.
so we can discuss it.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. We're going to just get the motion on the screen. So we'll just need a minute. The motion is on the screen. So maybe I'll just read that out so people can, in case it's too small. So the motion is that the new Westminster Board of Education direct the superintendent to form a subcommittee that includes 2 trustees selected by the Board of Education that will serve to provide feedback and receive updates on ongoing work towards a memorandum of understanding MOU with the NWPD. So can you read out your amendment, trustee?
That the
Connolly?
new Westminster Board of Education direct the superintendent to provide updates to the Committee of the Whole on progress and development of a new memorandum of understanding.
Okay. I'm gonna say I don't, why don't we just treat those as separate motions? I think it wholly replaces the other one. So I think it's probably not an amendment, just to keep things a bit more simple. So we could just, let's make a decision on this amendment as it stands. And if it's defeated, we can hear the
Okay,
next one.
But trustee Slynn
That's my ruling as the chair with respect, just be in the interest of clarity.
Well, then can I speak to the motion that's on the table?
Yeah,
then?
go ahead.
I think that I would like to see, I don't know what feedback two trustees can provide. I don't see, I guess I'm just trying to understand this additional work when this is something that could just simply be brought back to the Committee of the Whole as it's being developed and with updates on how this program will work collaboratively with the Safe and Caring Schools team. I'm not understanding this another committee, more work. So the rest of the trustees don't get updates and included. I don't understand it at all. And why it wouldn't just be a regular update at our Committee of the Whole meetings on the progress and development. It seems to accomplish the same thing without having to strike another committee.
Okay, understood. On the main motion, trustee Carlson.
I'm wondering who else would be on this subcommittee.
It's just the trustees is what the motion reads. Any other discussion on the motion? Trustee Slynn.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask for clarification from trustee Connolly, sorry. Are you saying then, because in this motion, it says that will provide feedback, like if there was 2 trustees selected, they would provide feedback and receive updates. Are you saying just that the whole board receives the updates and then everybody provides feedback on it? Yeah.
Yes, to the Committee of the Whole, as opposed to striking a subcommittee.
Yeah.
That he presents to 2 trustees. I don't understand the logic of that when we have Committee of the Whole. And that seems the appropriate place and time to provide updates and on the work going towards the MOU.
Okay, yeah. I guess I'll just say the work is sensitive and it's very important. And I think it needs a level of focus and attention. We spend 5-10 minutes at board meetings on each agenda item. And this, we're talking about a negotiation process that I don't believe would be appropriate for an open committee of the whole. I think it requires some sensitivity. I think it's very appropriate and entirely reasonable that the board retain some involvement in this, and I think that is expected by the public. I don't think we can abrogate.
I don't think
our
we can speak on behalf of the
responsibilities.
public, sorry.
I'm stating my belief. I believe that members of the public expect us to remain involved in this work. I've got some more hands. Trustee Dhaliwal.
Yeah, I think just like based on the conversations, and I think like what are we ultimately what's the outcome of this and what we're trying to achieve? I think I appreciate you pointing to like sort of the sensitivity around like the work that's happening and prioritizing this. And I think my brain then immediately went to like, okay, we're about to go into summertime. We won't be meeting till like end of September. And I think I think it's good for the superintendent to have like a couple of folks for like a temperature check, like in between. And I think it's entirely appropriate as we've done with other like subcommittees and like I'd suspect if this, two trustees didn't exist, that information would be shared at CASA anyway. So we would have the chair and vice chair providing input or feedback anyway. So I think I do support that in the spirit of moving things along and ensuring that the board's values are like sort of reflected and to support the superintendent in any sort of areas where like he might prefer like further guidance or just checking in to see if like that's the right path or not. So that was it. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've got one more speaker and then I'm going to suggest we go to the vote, see where we're at. Trustee Carlson.
I have full confidence in the person we hired to do this. I believe to continue making subcommittees and committees and more meetings makes it more difficult to get people to attend. I'd be interested to know who and how the decision is made that these people may attend. There was something else that's just come out of my mind. But yeah, I'm not in favor. The Vancouver School Board did not have any trustees in the room, and they were all involved afterwards and heard all the information and came to a great understanding.
Okay, thank you. I think we're ready to move to the vote on the motion. Seeing no other hands. So all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, motion is carried. Is there any other discussion? Are we ready to conclude this matter? I think we are. Okay, great. We're then on number 7, new business, superintendent evaluation timeline. It's just my duty to report as chair. One of my duties is to ensure that we complete an evaluation of our superintendent. We're just coming up towards a year of our new superintendent, so we want to ensure that we do right by him and provide him with a little bit of feedback at this point and an opportunity as well to present on the work that he's done and work we're proud of doing together. We looked at availability of a number of people. I'm putting forward that we retain Jordan Tinney, former superintendent of the schools for Surrey. Jordan actually wrote a manual for BC school trustees about the evaluation of superintendents, which I found quite persuasive, and has proposed, he's got a proposed process that he has been following quite with a number of districts. He's doing this work for a lot of districts. So I thought the process was really thorough and looked good. We would initiate that basically tonight. He would join the board at our next in-camera meeting to explore with us what we want to learn in the process, and then most of that work would unfold in the fall, looking for a report in the winter. So I don't think I need a motion to that effect, but that is the plan at this point. Any questions or comments about that? Okay, we're then yeah, go ahead, Trustee Connolly.
Sorry, just a question around, were we not looking at, or is this going to be incorporated in this, our policy around the evaluation as well? So
Yeah.
that's going to be incorporated. in all
Yeah.
the three. Got it.
Thank you
Thanks.
for flagging that. I did discuss that with him, and his suggestion was, because our existing policy is a little bit cumbersome and it includes a very extensive process on an annual basis. Most districts do sort of a full review every 3 to 5 years with a less involved thing in the years in between. And I think that's something that we'd want to move to. He did recommend that he might offer observations about our policy rather than doing a full rewrite, because that might become expensive. So we can discuss that further with him when he comes and meets with the board. But I think, yeah, we probably want to take a look at that. Okay, thank you. Trustee reports. This is our opportunity for trustees to provide any updates on your committee work or events you're attending in the public. Anything people want to highlight? Trustee Carlson.
Well, I'll start by saying I was really happy to attend the capstone at NWSS. I'm pretty impressed with the students. Give a shout out to all of you who've done so much work. And there was a lot of passion. So I really appreciated that. I've also attended the branch meeting, Metro branch meeting, and the ELL consortium. There are 3 areas of advocacy that ELL is moving forward with because we are only allowed 3. The first is to remove the 5-year limit on allocation funding. The second is to allow assessments after audits, to allow them mid-year. And the third is to get a representative at ministry level. We need a voice there, but we need somebody with an education background. So that's being put forward to the ministry.
Wonderful. Thank you for attending that. That's a piece we've been missing for a little while. That's great. Trustee Sluice.
Thank you. Attended a couple of PAC meetings this month, had the opportunity to join Chair Russell and Superintendent Davidson at a meeting with Minister Bear at Kikite a couple of weeks ago. Very strategically, we invited them to attend at one of our most densely populated schools. And my job was to reiterate what our capital priorities are. Of course, Kikite is one of 2 elementary schools in our Fraser River zone. It's exploding at the seams. It opened only 10 years ago on an undersized lot to serve 550 students. And today, even reclaiming the childcare space, we've added 9 portables plus a wash car, and we're supporting 751 students there. So it was a really good opportunity to illustrate specifically what the challenge is in New Westminster. And we made a specific ask to please approve these projects so that we may begin resolving the crisis. Also just wanted to provide a bit of an update from our most recent SOGI meeting. We celebrated the additional visibility that is now at NWSS and coming to all schools in the district. There are certainly people who are unhappy with this action, and they're letting us know. We appreciate an open dialogue, and we're assuring them that our Pride logo initiative is not about promoting an ideology. It reflects our commitment to creating safe, welcoming, and exclusive schools for all students, staff, and families. The Pride symbol stands as a message of support for the 2S LGBTQIA+ community, which continues to face discrimination. Displaying it affirms our responsibility to ensure every student and staff member feels seen, respected, and safe. This commitment aligns not only with our district values, but with the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the BC Human Rights Code, which prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. The BC Ministry of Education and Childcare requires all public and independent schools to adopt SOGI inclusive policies to protect students from discrimination. Since 2016, gender identity and expression have been explicitly protected under law, reinforcing the importance of respect and inclusion in education. Our hope is to continue to create inclusive spaces that respect and uplift sexual orientations and gender identities, ensuring that visibility, but also supporting learning in a way that educates and empowers without intentionally alienating anyone. Inclusion is not a belief system. It is a fundamental principle of public education, and our role is to foster a learning environment where every student, staff, and family feels valued, supported, and safe. We also at that meeting talked about I think, first ever district 2S LGBTQIA plus staff gathering, which is happening in June in conjunction with Pride Month. We, as Trustee Connolly mentioned, we're looking at updating washroom signs to be more inclusive. Schools are doing some work connected to Pride Month, which is awesome. And we are receiving a presentation at the June Committee of the Whole by our SOGI committee. And I think that if I would love to put out an invitation if anyone is around in August, Saturday, August 16th, we are looking for volunteers to support the booth that we have at New West Pride. So just let me know if you're interested and we'd be happy to set you up. Thank you. That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any other updates? Trustee Connolly.
I think I gave my biggest update with the accessibility committee, so I'll keep it short. I just wanted to acknowledge the New Westminster Chamber of Commerce and the new partnership, and appreciate Chair Russell for initiating some of that work. And I'm really excited about the direction that's going to be going, and looking forward to that. And yeah, the jazz night was incredible. And there are, I think, June 12th, there's another musical review. Have a look on their socials. I know on Instagram, the New Westminster Musical Theatre, they have a showcase coming up soon, as well as a dance, New West Dance. I don't know their handle exactly, but I think if you reach out to the superintendent, he may have some information he can direct us to. And I think one of the shows is going to be at the Massey, so tickets are available through the Massey Theatre. And I would highly recommend the quality, the caliber of those students performing is second to none. And you know, it's one of those moments where you sit there and just have goosebumps at what you're listening to and what's coming from these students, and appreciate certainly the staff and volunteers who make that all happen. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Trustee Slynn.
Yeah, mine will be fairly short. I just wanted to echo Trustee Sluice about the meeting with Minister Bear, which I thought was a really great meeting with her and her staff, and just kind of working together towards a common purpose. I also wanted to acknowledge that it is Citizenship Week, so for all of our international students and families that are here in the district. And then I also wanted to acknowledge that the superintendent stole my role at Calvin, visiting the class. I was the champion of Simon Says before, and no longer am.
Wait, sorry.
Yeah. And then I'm excited to chair my first committee, the audit committee, with Secretary Treasurer and Amy, and who the other two trustees that are going to be joining me on that. So yeah, that's it for me.
Awesome. Thank you. Trustee Delaware.
I just wanted to add on to Trustee Connolly sharing all of the great work that's happening at the high school. I think it is this week, I believe the 29th and 30th, that they're doing NWSS SNL. Yeah. So I think sketch comedy is quite different for them. So I think that'll be funny and interesting. So yeah.
Yes, true. I'll be very quick as well. Just thanks to those who joined us at the New West Chamber of Commerce. That was a reach out we wanted to do, just to broaden sort of the community of concern for public education. And we thought that's a community we haven't connected with, and hope to involve in our just sort of bringing our broader community of support for what we're trying to do for kids. So that was lovely. Attended the FW Howie Elementary PAC meeting, which is always a lovely group of very, very hardworking volunteer parents. Their fun run is happening in June, and it's a very big event, you guys. There are freezies and there is a lot of running. It was lovely also to attend the Inclusive Ed Art Show that is put on in partnership with Burnaby Schools, and was with support from the City of New Westminster, is held at the Anvil Center. It was really, really lovely, and a very moving presentation from parents and educators. My rep school of Kite, I was unfortunately unable to attend the last PAC meeting, but I hope we made up for it by bringing the Minister of Education to tour the site. Yeah, and thank my other trustees for joining me at that. That concludes my report. And I think that gets us to the end of our trustee report. So now we are at question period. We have 15 minutes here. We welcome questions or comments that I will field and then direct as needed. And those are on matters that arose during the meeting. We do require you to introduce yourself with your full name. We're going to start with those who are in the audience, and then we will go to folks online. And when it comes to you online, you can actually at any time, you can use the react button to raise your hand or the wave hand, just so that we know that you want to speak, and then we'll call on you and ask you we'll unmute you and ask you to speak. Okay, and welcome DPAC rep in person.
Thank you. My name is Laura Kwong, and I'm the chair of the District Parent Advisory Council. Thanks for the opportunity to share an update. We held our AGM for our group this past month and at FRMS, and happy to say we have a full executive again with everybody returning, which is nice. A couple of our members have a very short amount of time left as they graduate out of the system. So we are in a knowledge transfer focused year for that. And I want to say a special thank you to Sandra Singh and Geraldine Lawler for coming out to our meeting in person and sharing the literacy update with parents and caregivers and answering questions about that. I also want to extend gratitude to Christy and the NWTU for their invitation to attend the BCTF's annual Parent Education Conference. They've extended this invite for the last few years, and I've been unable to attend, and anyone else from DPAC Exec has been unable to attend, so it was really nice to be able to go this year. It was an incredibly inspiring experience, and we walked away learning a lot and made a number of connections, which was, very grateful for that opportunity. We also attended this last weekend the BCCPAC AGM up in Prince George. On behalf of DPAC, I went, and the 8 other BCCPAC members in our district. Unfortunately, the AGM was sidelined by many technical as well as procedural and governance issues. We did not complete the business of the AGM, and an extraordinary general meeting is scheduled to go through the remaining 19 resolutions and a few other agenda items that were not completed. And I'm talking very quickly because, you haven't even started the timer. Thank you. I shouldn't have said anything. Okay. On to the meat of how we've been spending our time this month. We held a rally at Minister Baer's constituency office on May 17th. We've been pretty busy doing what we can to advocate for adequate funding for our district and for other districts around the province for the delivery of fully inclusive education without the need to make budget cuts. We hosted the rally at our constituency office in Maple Ridge and had supporters attend from all over the Lower Mainland as well as the interior of BC. Special thank you to trustees who came out to support, and WTU who came out to support. And unfortunately, we received no acknowledgement to the invitation that we issued to SD40 MLAs as well as Mr. Baer to speak with us at the rally. And more rallies. We inspired a number of DPACs around BC to hold similar rallies in their districts. And just yesterday, DPACs in BC came together to hold one on the steps of the legislature. Just before we arrived in Victoria, we received word that Minister Baer had accepted our invitation for a meeting. I met with the minister along with a number of her senior staff members, along with the chairs of Surrey DPAC and Kamloops Thompson DPAC. And we had 3 primary asks. The first is substantial capital funding and a transparent plan for the immediate 3 to 5 years to expedite new school development, especially in high growth districts. The second was for immediate funding adjustments that reflect the reality of inflation and rising living costs, such that they fully cover labor, contract costs, and benefit costs. And third, fully funded inclusive education with wraparound services. We requested that ministries responsible for services that are currently being delivered in our schools provide the funding to match that service delivery. So we're talking about the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Child and Family Development, and the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. We understand that the Ministry of Education staff regularly engage with these other ministry staff, but there's no funding that comes along with that engagement. So those were the requests. In that meeting, we had 30 minutes, which we hope we made an impression on. And Immediately following that meeting was a question period, which was exciting for my grade sixer who I pulled out of school and joined us in Victoria on Monday. I figured it was educational. We did receive a special welcome from our MLA, Jennifer Whiteside, during question period, which was a highlight for my daughter. And we observed, I think there were 4 questions asked of the Minister of Education regarding underfunding and budget cuts that school districts are facing right now. Lastly, we rallied on the steps of the legislature to end the day with parents and kids, teachers, and EAs from around BC. The rally included a display of empty backpacks spread across the steps, symbolizing the unmet needs that many students arrive to school with each day. A few MLAs joined in to listen to what we had to say, and media coverage was substantial. I need to extend an extra thank you to Trustee Connolly, who reached out to ask if she could tag along with me and another parent who were making the journey over to raise her voice alongside ours, and for keeping an eye on my daughter when we were meeting with the minister. And on the further provincial advocacy front, we're calling ourselves BC DPAC Coalition, but this group of DPACs around BC, we applied to present at the Select Standing Committee and we have been accepted and found out we will be presenting via Zoom on June 18th with, we get 5 minutes to make 3 budget requests. So we are working very hard to put together a 5-minute presentation that encompasses everything we'd like to ask for the Select Standing Committee on Finance regarding public education. Lastly, I'd like to thank the Accessibility Committee for their motion this evening. We've heard from parents of students with disabilities that regarding inclusion, especially during outdoor play, it's as important for physical reasons as it is for mental health and social reasons. Lastly, I'd like to share a comment from DPAC on the agenda item regarding the NWPD Memorandum of Understanding. We understand that after the police liaison program was cancelled in April 2021, that terms of a new working agreement were supposed to be struck between the district and the police department. This is what was communicated to parents and the public when we asked about next steps in April 2021 and again in May 2022. So we're glad to see a motion coming to move this forward on that commitment. The reality is that the New West Police Department is a part of our community along with our schools. These 2 organizations don't exist in silos within New West. So a memorandum of understanding could provide a foundation of shared understanding, mutual respect, and which are essential to effectively work alongside each other as community organizations in our city. So thank you for the opportunity to share an update from DPAC.
Thank you very much. I just on your final comment, I want to clarify, there had been many attempts to secure an MOU with the New West Police Department. But that's something that requires both parties, and we were unsuccessful. So we're hopeful that we're in a better place now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers in person? Okay, thanks. Go
Christy
ahead.
Oxley, New West Teachers Union. So I guess I'll start with saying that the New West Teachers Union AGM, separate from the BCTF AGM, which happens over spring break, our AGM happened today, just before I came here, and it was well attended. The budget cuts are known and have been for a while, and so lots of questions during that meeting. I did write a letter to the board, and I realized that it was probably only received last Thursday. I'm hoping that it might be considered official correspondence for a future meeting so that I can go over a few of the things in it. So maybe I will leave most of that there. I have also heard from several other teachers who were impacted by BITs and one layoff. And through Article E21, transfers and assignments, they're able to write a letter. And then I believe that there were at least a couple of other teachers or groups that took it upon themselves to write some advocacy letters. So really the main question I do have right now is if the board has seen, especially the advocacy letter around mentorship, and perhaps I can hold on to questions about it for the next meeting, but I can maybe just find out if you've seen it. It was a work of heart for sure. And there are a lot of people very, very upset and very sad to see that program go. couple of other things that, again, outlined in the letter, and just want to raise one more time. I realize that I keep coming here and talking about the space issue, but I continue to get questions around the space that's opened up at Spencer and what that could mean in terms of alleviating some of the capacity crunch that is happening over at Kakite and over at Kelvin. So just looking for another update there. Moving on to things that actually were discussed in the meeting today. I do want to say that Geraldine and Sandy mentioned that a number of teachers are on the literacy working group, and I did have a lot of interest in that, so I know that was great. In terms of moving forward with next steps, I'm excited to hear what's happening as well. But just a reminder, as I've been saying, over and over, teachers do have autonomy over classroom methods and resources. And so I bring that up not to say teachers have a right to do what they're doing in their classroom. That's not the message. The message here is actually that there was some really great literacy activities and assessments that have been going on for many, many years. And my hope is that that'll be honored with this work as well. Also, again, I've raised this before, and I think I have heard an answer, but anytime we're going to talk about a new plan to store data and to be consistently looking at that, it does create a bit of a workload issue. So I'm hoping as Ed Plan Insight is rolled out and implemented, that we're looking at how we can make that not onerous for teachers, certainly. And then finally, the Integrated Child and Youth Team, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure what that actually means, at a granular level. I'd love to hear a little bit more. I do, acknowledge that when we had the tragic accident with Kira and the support that was needed in the district, that, it's my understanding that teams from, I'm sort of looking around, if somebody can let me know, teams from other districts came and supported. So, it sounds fabulous, but I don't actually 100% know what it means. And of course, anytime we don't know what it means, there are people who have other questions that I can't answer. So just wondering if we were to get the nod for an ICY team, what would that mean for the counselors in the district?
Okay, I'm going to take two of your questions.
Yes.
Just the first one, I do have the advocacy letter about mentorship. Thank you. I actually didn't see. I've just forwarded it to the board, so my apologies. I missed that was for the request. Integrated child and youth teams they're a creation of the province as part of its mental health strategy, and it's a multidisciplinary mental health team that's embedded within school districts. And the first pilot was introduced in Maple Ridge. It's been quite successful, and it's something that we've been looking at for a number of years as a service that really needs to be out there in the community that we can refer out to. So not to replace what we're doing in school, but to provide that higher level of more intensive mental health supports than what we're able to deliver in schools. Superintendent Davidson, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's excellent. My impression from spending a fair amount of time with the person who leads the district's role with the team in Surrey, along with supporting counselors across the system, is that it's really about supporting integrated services. There's no issue in terms of replacement. Having spent time talking to a couple of counselors who are not part of ICY, who are actually counselors from schools that came, they indicated that it had an impact, a positive impact on their ability to help students and families access services and supports. So it sounds to me like it felt to them that it made their jobs, it helped lessen the load some. I will say that they are different from place to place, and that depends on the nature of the partnerships that exist prior to the ICY being in place. And we have a growing number of partnerships in our schools, like Dan's Legacy and others, that are augmenting services. That's part of what they consider when they create the ICY model. So what exists in one place may be slightly different than another, but the principles are the same.
Thank you.
And then you had questions around Spencer and literacy and workload. I don't know if you're able to take those, Superintendent Davidson.
And we're very much aware of the sort of uneven distribution of students across the system and classroom availability. But what we really want to do is make sure that that whatever we do doesn't create greater challenge for families in terms of dividing families from the same home, or having them perhaps start at Spencer, and then there's an engage in a review of boundaries and space in schools, and then have them move children again, which has a deleterious impact on learning. So we're really wanting to make sure that the kind of changes we make have us fill classrooms in a thoughtful way and not sort of jump.
Yeah, I'll just add that coupled with comments, we are engaging in a long-range facility plan refresh this year. So some of that work on revisiting enrollment to get refresh numbers will help us in some of that short and medium-term decision-making. But quite right, the superintendent has indicated that it is very complex. You can't sort of willy-nilly move children as space creates itself, because the impact for when they move into the middle school years, if they were moved to a different school, well, it pulls them back to their original catchment, and then they're separated from their cohort that they were going to school with during the elementary years. So it's more complex than it seems on the surface, coupled with the longer term capital projects coming down the pipe to implement and grandfather kids into the system. By the time you grandfather and make the full-blown change that you had wanted to make, you're coupling another change on top when a capital project comes online. But your point's well taken. It is known. I'm sure it is something people are scratching their heads at, but we see it, and we're going to look to tackle those pieces this coming summer and create a transitional plan for the next 3 or so years as we have more updated enrollment figures.
And then to the literacy question, part of what Director Singh is working on around the implementation of what she described earlier today is how do we address workload? And so how do we support teachers in doing that in terms of time and time for collaboration and so on? So that's part of the work that she's doing with Geraldine.
I appreciate the thoughtful process. I get that. I'm a little disappointed that there won't be a solution or the ability to move students over the summer, right? But I understand what you're saying. I suppose I'm not really looking for an answer here, but you know, so sort of to advocate on behalf of my members. We wonder what it would mean to add an additional, say, just kindergarten classroom at Spencer, knowing that whether or not those students went to Spencer or to Kakite, that at this point in time, unless we move the French immersion middle school, that really they would end up in the same place later on, and it would actually kind of upfill those intermediate French immersion classrooms. So again, I'm not asking you to pull numbers out, and I don't want to engage into a debate, but I'm wondering if there's maybe any possibility. Okay, thank you.
Yep, one more response.
Christy, if it's okay with you, I have the requests at the bottom of the letter. Would it be good if I prepared a response and shared that with the board and with you, so that between now and the next time we're together, you'll have had an opportunity to read them? Does that work?
That would be great. Yes,
Okay.
thank you very much.
You bet.
Okay, thank you. We will just see then if there was any participants in our meeting online who wish to ask a question or make a comment. I'm not seeing any hands. I want to give people a minute. Sometimes it takes a minute to find that raise hand button. You can also turn your camera on and just wave. That works too. Okay, I think we've covered our speakers list. So then you've got our notice of meetings. Our next 2 meetings, we have the Committee of the Whole on June 10th and a regular board meeting at the end of June, and that takes us to the end of the school year. Attached is a record of our April 29th in-camera meeting. And number 12, looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thanks, everybody, and good night. Yes, and trustees and senior staff will stay for a resumption of our previous in-camera meeting.